back to Dreamworld Observatory. We're going to discuss types of telescopes now. This is a new series that we're going to take maybe 2 or 3 videos and kind of help you figure out what kind of telescope you need or what you would like, what might be convenient for you as a beginner astronomer. There are 3 basic types of telescopes that are used by amateurs. There's a refractor, the reflector, and a catadioptric, which is a compound telescope, and we'll discuss that when we get there. The first one we want to look at is the one I've got here hanging in my observatory. It's actually something I had when I was about 13 years old. It's, I believe it's something like 1963, maybe 64, when this was put out. But if you look at this, it's about 4 feet long. This is what people usually think of when you mention a telescope to them. A long white tube with an eyepiece on one end. And that's basically about all it is. Galileo invented this telescope some time ago. On one end we have an objective, which is a lens. And on the other end we put our eyepiece down here. Now most telescopes today have a focuser. This particular one focused by pulling the rod out of the end, the tube out of the end, so it was not very good. You didn't have any real good focus. Now, there are different kinds of refractors, and this is the one that you would normally see, and it sits up on a tripod and it mounts vertically, standing straight up, and it only has 2 motions. It either goes back and forth, left and right, or up and down. That's called an azimuth mount. Not very good for a whole lot of things in astronomy, in my opinion. But and for a kid, this would be very hard to handle. Now that being said, refractors are really good telescopes, and the larger ones and the ones that are apo are very expensive. What I was referring to about this is not a very good telescope. This particular one is not a very good one. You can get these mounted on an equatorial mount, which we'll discuss mounts in another video. But once the refractor is put on an equatorial mount, it can become an astronomical device. Usually one that's mounted like this is really only good for terrestrial looking, like looking at birds and looking at deer and stuff. But this is what they sell in a department store. The ones that operate just like this. You don't want that to do astronomy. Now also looking at a refractor, I'll let that stay up there on the wall where you can actually see it. There are some pros and there are some cons for a refractor. Now on the pro side of it, there is no blockage inside the tube. Nowhere is it blocked by any kind of a spatter or another mirror. There's only 2 lenses, the objective and the eyepiece. That's it. It's just a long hollow tube. It's very portable whenever you're under 4 inches. Now this particular one you're looking at is about a 3 inch. A 4 inch is about as big as you want to get without going into maybe an apo, and then that's going to become very expensive. It's easy to point. A refractor is, particularly on an equatorial mount. It's referred to it, that's what we want, is an equatorial mount. An eyepiece is located always in good position at the far end. There may be times whenever you're going up high overhead that it will become inconvenient to be able to use that, and you'll have to put in something like what they call a 90-degree diagonal in order to be able to see overhead. But you will never be able to point that to the zenith, not on that particular type of mount. Now, on an equatorial mount, you can. Now, the cons of it. Now, these are things that are not too good with it. Refractors do have a problem with chromatic aberration. The only way you can get away from that is go to an apo. Now, apo is very expensive, but it does clean up the aberration. The aberration is when you see the reds and blues don't focus in the same point. So when you're looking at an object, you'll see red and you'll see blue around the edges of it. That's what we're talking about. Now, another inconvenience of a refractor is there's usually long tubes, like you see here. Also, the eyepiece can become too low. Now, as I discussed earlier, it can become too low, and it would stop your overhead viewing, particularly in using an azimuth mount. But in an equatorial mount, it probably won't be any problem. Okay, the next type of telescope we're going to look at is called a reflector. Now, the reason it's called a reflector is there's usually a mirror in one end, and this mirror is takes the place of the objective that's on the refractor, which was a lens. This is a mirror which does the same thing. It reflects the light. Now, in the other end is where, in this end, the light comes in. When the light comes in, it goes all the way down and hits this mirror and bounces back up. And right in on this, there's a little piece there. I'll show you what it looks like. If you look right down the hole there, I don't know if you can actually see in there. You see the mirror down in there at the bottom? That reflection you see down there is the mirror. It's the primary mirror. Now, this particular mirror is 5 inches. Now, it'll bounce the light back up, and on the back of here is another mirror. It's a flat mirror. It's not a reflecting mirror that's curved. This is flat. Then the light will be reflected out to the eyepiece. Now, that's what's called a reflector. Now, these can be bought and mounted on a, you can have this particular type here can be mounted on an azimuth, which to me, you know, I already don't like that, or an equatorial mount. Looking at this mount, this is an equatorial mount. Now, we're going to discuss mounts in another issue. But right now, this is all we want to do is look at a particular scope that we're looking at. Now, this particular one is 5 inch. It's an f8, which means has a focal length of about, well, let's see. This is, I think this one here is about 1,000 millimeter focal length on it. So that's pretty hefty. All right. Now, the things about a reflecting telescope is there is no chromatic aberration. You remember the red and the blue around the objects I told you about? Well, you don't have that in a reflector. Now, these are all pros. Now, you're going to have you can get the bigger, you can buy big units as compared to a refractor. You can get, instead of a 3 inch, we got a 5 here, and this probably costs just as much as, you know, as a 3 inch, but not that particular one we're looking at. It has a lot of light gathering power. The mirror gathers more power. The bigger the mirror, the bigger the power of light. Now, it doesn't do not necessarily multiplying as your power. We'll discuss power later. But what we're looking at here is how much light gathering power. So a reflector has a lot light gathering power over a refractor. You also have wide field of views and a faster scope. In other words, the longer focal length, you have faster, in short focal length, you'll have faster mirrors. The bigger the mirror, shorter the focal length, the more faster it will be. And you'll see what the advantage of that is when we get into another field. Usually the cost per inch of a reflector telescope is a lot less compared to a refractor. You can get on up there when you're buying a refractor, especially if you get past a 3 or 4 inch chromatic and you go up to a Alpo, it can get into a couple of $1,000s. Now, some of the cons for this particular scope, it does not have aberration, but it does have aberration called coma. And coma is when, if you're looking to the outside edge of the field, when you're looking to the telescope, excuse me, you may see some little tails. So, but everything in the center will always be sharp and clear. That's one of the defects of a reflector is coma. Now, when you get big units, when you get on up into sizes like 8, 10, 12, maybe 16 inch, they can be really, really heavy, and they can be big too. Now, there are some problems with the amount of elements that we have. We have 2 mirrors in it, and so there is some light loss. But we also have that spatter in the middle. Remember what the secondary mirror is sitting on? It actually blocks out some light. But most people don't really notice that, especially in a larger scope. Your eyepiece. Now, it can be put in a bad position. If you'll notice these straps on here, if you was to lock this and turn this telescope a little bit, you will find that it will get in a awkward position. You see here? You see the eyepiece going down? And if you start turning this over, now it goes up to this. Now what you can do is you can loosen the strap and rotate the tube to make it more convenient to look at. But that is an inconvenience. Where it's placed may not be convenient when you look at another area of the sky. Now you can also solve some of the problems that way by putting in, like you do on the refractor, just put in a diagonal. A diagonal will help you be able to see more than 90 degrees above your head. Alright, here's the next scope in all this. This is a catadioptric. This is a compound telescope. It has, well, before I explain what a compound telescope is, look it up on top. You see up here we have 2 smaller scopes. This is the viewfinder, and it is a refractor. Has a lens in one end and an eyepiece at the other. This other one is also a refractor, and it's more like what you're going to see when you go buy a refractor today. It's going to be a little bit better built, but this is a short, what they call a short tube 80, and it's used for tracking. It's mounted on top of this catadioptric. All right, now catadioptric. Here's how it works. It's a little bit different. It has a combination of lenses and mirrors in it. The light will come in from this end, pass through. There's a lens here, believe it or not. There's a glass here. It passes through that lens, comes down, and hits a big mirror in the bottom of this one. This one here in particular is a 10-inch mirror. Then the light's reflected back, and on the back of this lens is another mirror. But it's concave instead of flat. I'm sorry, convex instead of flat. It will hit that convex mirror and bounce back and comes through the center of the primary out to be focused out here where the eyepiece is. So you can have a telescope that's humongously long reduced down to nothing. This scope is roughly a little bit, so I think that's 24 inches to here. So roughly it's about 27 inches altogether, but the mirror to here is only 18 inches. Now, so this scope is a 10-inch mirror. It has a focal length of 2,540. And I'll convert that that's 100 inches. So you see the length here? The focus point would be 100 inches way out yonder if we let that do this. But it's all been shortened down to roughly about 20 inches is where it actually ends up out here. Now, that being said, these scopes are very good for anything. They're good for viewing. They're good for photography, which you don't know anything about right yet. But if you want to do some serious photography, this is the type of scope you'll need, something like this. And that's a heavy issue we'll save for another day. But right now I want to tell you a little bit about some pros and cons of this unit. Some of the pros is, like I just said, it has good light power. The fact that we have that 10-inch mirror down here grabs light like you wouldn't believe. It's also has very little aberration, if any at all. It pretty much eliminates it. You don't even see that. It's a good portable scope. Now this scope here is, actually it was portable. I have a tripod which is huge. It has 2-inch legs on it, made of steel. But it weighed about, I think altogether it's just the scope alone is about 70 pounds. And then I think the tripod's another 30. So that's pretty heavy. So to me, that wasn't portable, but for a long time I used it as portable until I made a permanent mount for it. So anything around 10 inches or below it is portable. I would say a 12 inch is not that portable to me, but and in fact, I'm not even going to say really that 10 inches is portable. I had a time with it. Now, the eyepiece is always in a good position on here. This eyepiece, if you want, you can loosen it, turn it any way you want. You put your diagonal on it, you can look it straight, and look where you can go. You can go all the way down right here, and you're virtually looking straight overhead. Now, that's if you just did it there, but normally that scope's going to rotate, because this is an equatorial mount. It's also a fork mount mounted equatorially. Very complicated mount, and we will go into that when we start discussing mounts for what they do. Now, some bad things about this scope will probably be, they may not be as bad as you think. They do have some light loss due to the fact that you've got a glass down here, you got another mirror, then it bounces up, hits the mirror, and it comes back and passes through whatever you have out here. So there is some light loss. But believe you me, you're not going to notice it that much. That's just, I've never noticed it. I just don't see a light loss in it myself. That matters. Now, you do have a central obstruction up here where I told you was a spatter. Well, it's not a spatter, but it's a glass, a lens. And on the other side of that lens is the mirror. The thing is, that is so big that it does block some light. But like I said, it's not a big issue, but that's what people call an obstruction. And if you look at it, it's pretty good size. But anyway, that's not that big a deal. Now, one thing I need to mention there is this lens that we keep talking about right here. That's why you don't have that light aberration. Light aberration. It focuses, you know, the red and blues don't focus in the same path. That will correct it. That's what corrects it right there. Now, the most thing about this type of scope that I find to be a con is when you go out to use it in the evening, you have a cool down time that takes a pretty good while. This particular scope here, it takes roughly, I let it cool down for about 45 minutes. I'll come out and let it cool down by taking the cover off here and pulling the thing out. And I'll turn this upside down so dust can't get in it. But this is sealed. So all that heat that's in it has to get out. Because if it doesn't, you won't be able to do any good focusing or anything. It'll just look terrible. So what you need to do is let it cool down. Now, there's quick cool downs on the other type of scopes because they're not sealed. I'd say probably 15-20 minutes. You're ready to go with this. With them. But this particular one will take you a long time, but you will be happy with what you see later. Okay, that's going to conclude this week's episode. All about the types of telescopes. Basically, there are 3. I think we covered them pretty good. All I wanted to do today was just introduce you to the 3 types of telescopes. Now, I know you've got plenty of questions. But next time we will actually start looking at how to solve for eyepiece power and the power of your telescope. Until then, if you like what you saw, click like and subscribe. Come on back to Dreamworld Observatory and we'll discuss some more about backyard astronomy. Until then, keep looking up in clear skies.